What's up, movie fans? Okay guys, I don't think that it's any secret that DC hasn't exactly handled its DC Extended Universe the best way possible. Yeah, that's an understatement. DC, its cinematic universe just wasn't very good. That's sad, because, like, DC, it came before Marvel. If anything, it should have a better cinematic universe, but Marvel's way better. One thing that a lot of people actually say about DC, though, is that their live-action movies aren't that great, but they actually have good animated movies. And one thing that a lot of people say is really good is the DC animated movie universe. This is a bunch of direct-to-DVD movies that are animated, and they are in the same universe. There are 16 of them, and people actually say that that universe is good. And I decided, hey, I want to check these movies out and review them on my channel, because why not? Since there are 16 of them, I am going to do this video in 4 different parts. I haven't actually seen them all yet. I've only seen the first 5, so today I'm going to be reviewing the first 4. Like I said, I'm doing it in 4 parts. So in part 2, I'm gonna do the next 4. In part 3, I'm gonna do the next 4. You know what I mean. Let's get into it. So the first 4 movies in this universe are called Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox, Justice League War, Son of Batman, and Justice League Throne of Atlantis. Starting with Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox. Now, this movie is about Barry Allen, aka The Flash. One day he wakes up in this alternate reality where there are a bunch of different, changes. Some of the biggest ones are that the Justice League was never formed. He doesn't have powers. Barry doesn't have powers. One of the coolest ones in this universe is that instead of Bruce Wayne's parents dying in the alleyway, Bruce Wayne was actually the one who died. And so his parents, his dad ended up becoming Batman, and his mom ended up becoming the Joker. So that's a really interesting concept that's in this movie. Flash goes into this alternate timeline, and he has to team up with this weird Batman from the alternate reality to fix everything. And so I'm going to tell you everything I liked about this movie, and then everything I disliked. And then I'll tell you what I thought of it, and I'll do that with all 4 movies. So starting with everything I liked about it, I was kind of surprised at how big this movie was. Like, this was only the introduction to this universe, and yet we're already going into, alternate realities and, high-stakes, world-ending things. That caught me off guard, and I thought that that was cool. I was surprised by the scale of this story. I really like the Flash in this movie. His character arc, I think, was really great. You learn later, this is gonna be a minor spoiler for the movie, but you learn later in the movie, in this big twist, that this entire universe was the Flash's fault, which basically means the Flash is the villain of this movie in a way, and I like that. That left some room for him to grow, and I thought his character arc was interesting. Now, talking about the actual main villain of this movie, that's the Reverse Flash, or he's not actually called the Reverse Flash in this movie. They don't actually say that name in this movie. That's weird. But Reverse Flash was a pretty great villain. He was threatening, he was entertaining. He doesn't really have a lot of depth to him, but I still think he was a threatening opponent to the Flash. Now let's talk about this version of Batman. This version of Batman uses guns. Normally, I hate Batman using guns. I think that that's stupid. But I'm actually okay with it here because this is an alternate universe. Remember, Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox takes place in an alternate universe. This isn't the main Batman of this universe. This is an alternate version. Therefore, I'm okay with him using guns because the entire point of him is that he's an opposite to the normal Batman. I was okay with that here. I mean, like, can you imagine if there was a universe where the main actual Batman used guns? That would be so stupid. I'm so glad that doesn't exist. I really like the main theme of this movie about accepting the things you can't change and how Flash's character arc played into that. And I just really like discovering new things about this world and seeing what the DC universe would be like if things had just gone a little bit differently. So that's everything I liked about this movie. Now let's get into some of the things I disliked. First off, Martha Wayne being the Joker, that is a extremely missed opportunity because they say it like that's canon to this movie, yet they don't really use it. Like, she's never really in this movie besides the flashback, and I thought that was a missed opportunity. Then also, I don't like how it kept randomly cutting to, like, the war between Aquaman and Wonder Woman. Like, I get that was kind of the main plot of the movie. I think those scenes would have been more impactful if a main character would have actually been present during those scenes. Also, I think that the themes of this movie are introduced a bit too late into this movie because they want to make Flash causing this alternate reality a twist, but as a result, it doesn't leave a lot of time for him to really dwell on his decision and realize how bad it was. So those were my problems with this movie. Besides that, Justice League The Flashpoint Paradox, this is actually a pretty good movie. I liked it. So I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. I thought it was good. I wish I could say that about the next movie. So yeah, let's move on to Justice League War. Now, this movie is kind of weird because it actually takes place before Flashpoint Paradox, and it is a Justice League origin story movie. So yeah, keep that in mind, because if you watch this thinking it takes place after Flashpoint, you're gonna be very confused. Justice League War. Let's get into the things I liked. There aren't many. I liked a lot of the interactions between heroes in this movie. I think that them meeting each other was, for the first time, was handled well. I especially liked the dynamic between Batman and Green Lantern throughout this movie. I thought that that was fun. And I also liked Green Lantern's, like, main arc in this movie. I thought that was interesting. That's it. That's everything I liked about this movie. Justice League War, let's just get into the things I disliked. First off, Darkseid is a horrible villain. He's hardly even a character. I cannot remember, did he speak in this movie? That's a genuine question that I am asking, because I cannot remember. That's how memorable he was. He was just such a forgettable, bland villain. I did not like Darkseid. The other character I really despised in this movie is Shazam. He is such a jerk in this movie. Like, I'm not even kidding. He breaks into the football stadium, steals Victor's jersey, and then goes home and tells his foster family they're not his real family, and he's never called out for any of this. Like, that's all terrible. And he's never called out, he never changes or develops. Billy Batson in the Shazam movie did this kind of stuff too, but he actually developed, so I was okay with it. I also don't really like Cyborg's character arc in this movie. His entire arc is that his father in this movie keeps caring more about his own experiments than his own son. His father's doing the wrong thing here, and that could be an interesting arc. They try to give a solution to the arc at the end of the movie, but the problem here is that in reality, Silas Stone actually doesn't care about his son until his son becomes one of his experiments. Until his son becomes Cyborg. That's messed up. That's not good development, that's just messed up. The story doesn't feel like it has any cohesive flow to it. It's just a bunch of random action sequences happening, and characters meet each other during them. This movie just, it wasn't good. I did not like Justice League War. which officially means that the Snyder Cut is basically the last man standing for a good Justice League origin movie. Hopefully the Snyder Cut will be good. I honestly don't think it's gonna happen though, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I didn't like Justice League War. I'm actually gonna give it a 4 out of 10. I did not like it. So now, moving on to the next movie on this list, we have Son of Batman. Now, this movie is about, apparently Batman had a son named Damian Wayne. He was hidden from him and raised by the League of Assassins for his entire life. So Batman learns that he has this son and tries to train his son as the new Robin. So that's essentially the plot of this movie. I actually really like that premise. Getting into the things I really like this premise, because, like, Batman has to train this new Robin, and Batman's one rule is that he doesn't kill people. His son was literally trained by a League of Assassins. So obviously there's gonna be some conflict between them, and I like that. I like that concept. I don't think they necessarily executed it that great, but we'll get to that later. I really like this interpretation of Batman. Honestly, I can say this with all 4 of these movies. This version of Batman actually, like, feels like Batman. I'm not that big a fan of his Batman voice, but he actually feels like Batman, because he's, like, presented as a detective. He's a great detective throughout these movies, and that's who Batman is, so I like that. Deathstroke is the main villain of this movie, and I like him. I think they did a good job with Deathstroke. His motivations made sense. I also like some of the action in this movie. I think that was cool. I just talked about everything I liked. Now let's get into everything I disliked. Some of this movie was a bit rushed. Specifically 2 points in particular I felt were weird. So first off, there's a scene where Batman is, like, yelling at Damian because Damian went against his orders and went off looking for Deathstroke, and so Batman's yelling at him. And then in that same exact scene, if I'm remembering this correctly, in that same exact scene, Batman is basically like, hey, Damian, you want to be the new Robin? In the same scene, after he just got done yelling at him, he was like, you want to be the new Robin? I felt that was dumb. My other thing comes at the end, during the final battle, when Damian spares Deathstroke's life. I like that. It makes sense, because it shows that he grew. But when did he grow? I think they rushed his character arc. It kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. So that's my main problem with this movie. Besides that, I don't have a lot to say about it. So this movie was okay. I don't think it was great, like Flashpoint, or terrible, like Justice League War. It was okay. So I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. I think that feels good. So yeah. Now let's move on to the last movie I'm talking about today, Justice League Throne of Atlantis. In this movie, apparently, during the final battle of Justice League War, this movie ties directly into Justice League War. During that final battle, the King of Atlantis got too close to the surface and got killed. So that's the main premise of this movie, and so Ocean Master, or Orm, Aquaman's brother, is all like, let's kill the surface, because, yeah. So that's basically what the main premise of this movie. He wants to destroy the surface, and so Queen Atlanta, the Queen of Atlantis, sends Mera to go get, Arthur, Aquaman, to be the new King of Atlantis, because Orm's clearly not fit to lead. So yeah, that's basically the premise of this movie. Now, I actually really like how this movie ties into Justice League War. It's a direct sequel to Justice League War. The Justice League are still warming up to each other. Like, they're not a fully fledged team yet. They're still working it out. And they kind of realize we have to, like, be more committed to this team, and they realize that in this movie, and I actually think that's a natural next step to this story. Like, I don't like Justice League War, but this movie actually continues off of what that movie set up pretty well, so I like that. Now, talking about the new member of the Justice League cast, though he was in Flashpoint, but you know what I mean. Aquaman is in this movie, and I like this interpretation of him. I mean, I could have gone with more screen time or, like, development, but overall, I liked Aquaman in this movie, and I liked Orm, too. I think that Orm was a great villain. This isn't a negative or a positive. If anything, it's more of a negative on Aquaman's part. Honestly, while I was watching this movie, I felt like, hey, a lot of this feels like the plot of Aquaman. This movie came out before Aquaman, so yeah, if anything, Aquaman was ripping off this movie, or it was just from the comics. That probably makes more sense. It was very similar to Aquaman. That's not really a positive or a negative. I'm just mentioning that. But one thing that I think is done better than Aquaman in this movie is Orm. In Aquaman, Orm honestly just felt kind of bland, like he was just trying to destroy the surface because pollution. That's it. That's as deep as his motivations go. But having the surface be partly responsible for his father's death, that's a better motivation. That makes sense. Where his motivations started to get a bit weird to me, and I'm gonna spoil the movie here, so if you haven't seen it and you want to see it, yeah. But when Orm killed his mom, I thought, hold up, his entire motivation is that he wants to avenge his father, and in order to achieve that goal, he's okay with killing his mother. I thought that was a bit weird. So that was my problem with this movie. I don't know why I just mentioned that while I was talking about the positives, now that I think about it. You know what, let's just get into the negatives, because, like, that's everything positive I had to say. So yeah, this movie's plot kind of feels uneventful when you think about it. Like, then I can recap the entire plot of this movie pretty easily. Orm wants to destroy the surface. Atlanta sends Mera to get Arthur. She brings back Arthur. The Justice League joins in along the way. Orm kills Atlanta and confesses to it. And then Cyborg plays that recording to all of the Atlanteans. So then they accept Arthur as their new king. That's it. That's the entire plot of the movie. I was able to cover that in 30 seconds. It kind of feels uneventful. If you, like, rewrite that ending about Cyborg a little bit, the story really doesn't even need the Justice League in it. It's a Justice League movie where the Justice League aren't really an essential part to the plot. So yeah, that's a minor problem that I had. I felt like this story kind of felt uneventful. Overall, I liked this movie. I think it's a 7 out of 10. So there you go. That is my review of the first 4 movies in the DC animated movie universe. The main reason I'm watching this is because some people say that this universe fares better against the MCU than the DCEU. That's kind of what drew me into watching all of these. So far, I actually do have to say that statement is correct. Like, just based off of the first 4 movies of the DCEU versus the first 4 movies of this universe, this is definitely better, because the first 4 movies of the DCEU had Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad in it, so it was never gonna win that battle. So overall, I like this universe so far. I liked 3 of the movies. I did not like Justice League War, but overall, it's pretty good. So there you go. If you enjoyed, then like and subscribe, and see ya, movie fans.